How is it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 124 of the Shula Bowl podcast. I am Jake Gibson, and I think we have another great episode for you all to check out today as we go over a recap of what happened last week for both FIU and Florida Atlantic, alongside a preview for what's to come in week 2 of the college football season. We're going to start with Kevin Barral as he goes over FIU's win over Bethune-Cookman to start the season, as well as their matchup in Happy Valley against Penn State, alongside Kevin Fielder, who goes over FAU's loss to Maryland, but previews their home opener against Florida A&M. So it should be a good episode to start things up here for episode 124. Let's kick it off with Kevin Barral as we go over the FIU Panthers. How is it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 124 of the Shula Bowl podcast. I am Jake Gibson, joined alongside Kevin Barral, our FIU representative, who must be on a high note considering they're starting off the season strong. The first dub of the Willie Simmons era, Kevin Barral. Just talk about it real quick. How excited are you to finally see him get that W just up and out of here?
Yeah, it was definitely great, right? I mean, sigh of relief after the last couple of years of very unfortunate battles against FCS opponents, making it seem like they really had a shot. You go into Pitbull Stadium against Bethune-Cookman, 42-9, don't allow a touchdown for the first time since 2019. Also recorded 6 rushing touchdowns, which ties for the most in program history. So you'll take it, right? Overall, great game for FIU. Could have done a lot of things a little bit better. Q1 could have been a little bit better, more consistent. Decision-making could have been a lot better, and he's going to need it to be a lot better against this next opponent. So, yeah, overall, good stuff, but definitely won't be an easy challenge in Happy Valley.
Will not be an easy challenge in Happy Valley, but let's just talk about that for a sec. You hit the nail on the head. It's a relief to finally see FIU kind of just wall up on an FCS school, but talk about what really made them do that. I mean, you look at the stats, 6 rushing touchdowns in the red zone is pretty cool, but does that tell the whole story of how the Panthers were able to pull this off? It's okay, they're taking on an FCS opponent, I get it, but really, what stood out more than anything about how either their offense or defense performed?
Yeah, I really think they established a run game, right? I mean, 6 rushing touchdowns, it speaks for itself. You know, in years past, you felt like you had good depth at the running back position, but really never found a way to establish a run, and they did that. KJ Owens with 2 touchdowns, Devontae Lyons with 1, Anthony Carey with 1, Kewan Jenkins with 2 of them. So offensive line had a pretty nice day. No sacks allowed, I'm pretty sure. So you'll take that, obviously. And overall, run game was established. Things were done that you hadn't seen in years past, and that really opened the passing game too. Kewan spread out the ball a lot. 13 different players recorded at least 1 reception, which is a program record. So you will take that. You'll gladly take that. And definitely shows that maybe this isn't a year where you'll have an 1,000-yard receiver. And it could be also a year that tells you maybe this team's going to pound the ball a lot more on the ground than over the air. So you'll take it. It is a little weird that I would say that, just given every indication tells you, hey, this is going to be more of a air raid offense. You're going to pass the ball a lot more. You're going to be more explosive. And we could still see that, but we didn't see it in week 1.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, all those pass catchers. Do you really think that's going to be something that FIU continues to do as the season progresses? Do you think there's a chance that, okay, the only reason a few of those pass catchers got a reception was because they were up by a lot of points against Bethune? Or do you genuinely think that we're not going to see a 1,000-yard receiver this season?
I don't think we'll see one, and I'll say why. I think that Willie made it clear since day one that if you're good, you're gonna play, and he said he felt good about 10 to 11 receivers on that roster. So I'm sure that like he's gonna spread the ball out. I don't think he'll spread it out to 13 different players, but I do think there's a world where he spreads it out to 10 or 11 different guys and a couple different wide receivers, including tight ends. And tight ends are now more involved in the passing game, so. Yeah, I don't think we'll get the 1,000-yard receiver, but I don't think that's a bad thing either. I mean, 2018, 2019, there were different guys who made big plays for FIU, and you would know that, Jake. Like those were good teams. Those were the best teams they've had in the last couple of years, right? So it certainly fits the mold of that for sure.
You would know that, Jake. Listen, I'm the neutral host. I'm wearing a Tua jersey, for goodness sake. to support our hometown team, the Dolphins, this Sunday. But so let me ask you this then. Offensive line, a whole bunch of new additions to it, but all things considered, Jenkins, for the most part, had plenty of time in the pocket to get the ball out. Talk about how they did. Were they more than impressive enough against BCU?
Yeah, defense was solid, right? I mean, you'll take it. You'll take the performance. You had the forced fumble. You had the sack. You had 2 sacks, the forced fumble, no interceptions, which is interesting. Maybe we got one on Saturday. So, yeah, it was fun performance. Like, I feel like, yes, you're excited they won, but you also have to take this with a grain of salt, right? It's Bethune. Yeah. You're going up against from the worst team you've played all season. You're going to play all season to the best team you're going to play all season.
Middle Tennessee might have something to say about that.
Bethune is so much worse. Don't worry about that. Yes, come on, please, Jake. Come on. So yes, I'm not too worried about Bethune being better than Middle Tennessee. So yes, defense is good. You'll take it. I think there's still some work to be done. There's still a lot. It was just the first game. First game isn't perfect for anyone, right? So hopefully. And Willie said this, the biggest improvement is from week 1 to week 2. Now, week 2 for FIU is a little different than week 1. So maybe week 3 is the biggest improvement you'll see. And week 3, it'll be 3 different people in this podcast.
That's crazy to think about what we have planned ahead for you all next week. But what was the biggest thing that Bethune-Cookman was able to do in this game against FIU that makes you think, if they can do that, then I worry about what Penn State could do if they don't fix that?
Nothing much really. I mean, Bethune got the passing game going pretty well. FIU really had some interesting coverages from just looking back at it that left a lot of open receivers, and that was certainly an issue that goes back to since the McIntyre days. So something, and obviously makes sense. It's the same DC. So I'm curious to see what that'll look like. And I think Penn State. I mean, you got to limit the explosive plays, right? I mean, Penn State is an explosive team with a brand new wide receiver room with Kyron Hudson, Traver Pena. So there's guys that are going to make plays, and you got to avoid that. And I think that is one thing that could definitely hurt them. I think FIU stopped the run pretty well, but I mean, you're going from a Bethune-Cookman running back room, which is probably one of the worst, to the best running back room in all of college football, right? So it is definitely going to be a different task. FIU only allowed over 100 yards. Penn State didn't run the ball extremely well last time, is from my understanding. So maybe FIU has a better opportunity to stop it than we think. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna face Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. It's not gonna be very easy.
Yeah, 135 yards in that game for Penn State, though 4 rushing touchdowns. So I mean, shoot, that's pretty good. So all things considered, we entered this game with predictions, with thoughts on how FIU would do. Ultimately, do you think that FIU's performance exceeded your expectations? All things considered, factoring in the rust and the nerves that I know Coach Simmons talked about.
I mean, Keyone left me a little bit disappointed, right? You were expecting a bigger game from him. Could have done a lot better, but given the circumstances of the lightning delay and the rain and all that stuff, he was just fine. And I think there's a lot of improvement to be done. I'll tell you this. You're obviously excited for the first game, but we walked in there and it was just like, yeah, we're going to win this game. Like, Bethune isn't that good. Like, anything they do wasn't really going to impress me, to be honest with you. I think I'm looking at that FAU game, honestly. Like, let's be honest. That's the game that you're going up against, similar competition than no one that is so much better than you that you're going to get blown out, or so much worse that you're going to blow them out, right? So you're not going to learn a lot about FIU. I didn't learn a lot about this FIU team in week 1. And honestly, unless they really keep it close with Penn State and they play up to their part, I mean, we're not going to learn a lot in week 2. We're going to learn about the only thing we'll learn about is what this FIU team will look like at its worst. And I don't think there's going to be at its worst, because they're going to obviously try, but Penn State's going to make them look pretty bad at times. So I don't think we really learn. We're not going to learn. We didn't learn much in week 1. We're not going to learn a lot in week 2, in my opinion. Yeah. I think week 3 is where you tell yourself, all right, this is where we start learning about this FIU team. You have FAU, Delaware, UConn, Western Kentucky, obviously with conference play. So I think that's when you learn about this FIU team, and when really the games begin to count the most, right? You're still searching for 6, but you're also trying to, when you go into conference play, search for the CUSA championship, which is totally achievable this year, in my opinion.
Let's not forget those 2 absolutely silly bye weeks that are in between that UConn game that FIU will also have to. Yeah. Did you feel even a little bit nervous when Bethune hit that first like 55-yard pass and then the field goal after, where you're like,
Nope.
No. Locked in. Okay, then. By the way, do you prefer this system leading up to the FAU game? Do you prefer this where they take on the FCS team first, then go take on a power conference team, or would you have preferred it the other way, where you start off with Penn State, then go to Bethune? Basically what FAU is doing, where you start off against the power conference team, then take on the FCS.
No, actually, I think this is better, right? I mean, you're going into a game where you're going to most likely come off a loss, so you're going to come in hungry, right? And I mean, unless if FAU loses to FAMU, holy crap! But I don't think that will happen. By the way,
Kevin Fielder doesn't think so either.
I would hope not. So, yeah, look, I think you're going to go into Happy Valley feeling pretty good about yourself, regardless of what you think the outcome is going to be. And they're going to try. You got to try, right? I mean, you can't just go in there and just blow the game from the start. So I think they'll come into this FAU game with a lot of hunger. They'll come. They'll say, all right, we just lost to Penn State. We just got blown out. Like, let's try to bounce back. Let's try to win the Shula Bowl. Like, they know what they're playing for. And honestly, if you get this win, if you lose, assuming they lose to Penn State, and you beat FAU, I see a world where you get 4 more after that. So again, it's the road to 6, right? So FAU is probably the biggest test of the season by far. It is the biggest swing game for FIU, and we'll talk about that more next week once it's for me. And I know you won't admit this, but it's hate FAU week.
I asked Kevin Fielder this. Do you think that FIU and FAU should cross out the A and the I like Ohio State and Michigan do when it's the game?
No, it's not that big of a deal.
All right, well, it is to us.
I will say this isn't the worst rivalry. I think there's worse.
Yeah,
but yeah, no.
I always say civil conflict between. I think it's civil conflict between UCF and UConn's always a weird one. I think someone made a video about that. I digress. We love the rivalry. That's why we're doing this. That's why we here. But yeah, you might be correct there. So let's talk about Penn State, the Nittany Lions, the number 2 team in the nation. Kevin, you've talked about it for a while. You thought they'd be the number 1 team in the nation. You weren't far off. But just talk a bit about some of the film you've seen from that game against Nevada, just what you kind of learned about Penn State in leading up to this game, about what they can struggle with against FIU and what you think they're gonna cook against the Panthers.
There's going to be more cooking than struggling, to be honest with you. And yeah, I mean, when you have the 2 best running backs in the country, or best duo in the country, and Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, 2 guys who come into this season with over 1,000 yards rushing from the previous year. Drew Allard, who is most likely going to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, this upcoming draft. And you bring in a pretty refreshing wide receiver room, Kyron Hudson, Traber Pena, just the 2 guys to note there. Defensively, they have 2 guys on the edges. I think it's 33 and 44. 2 very, very good defensive linemen who many are saying are going to rock the FIU O-line. I hope that's not the case. So, yeah, this is the most complete team, in my opinion, in college football. It's either them or Ohio State, right? So, people could say whatever they want. This wasn't supposed to be the game, right? It was supposed to be Penn State versus West Virginia. I don't know who FIU would have played in that case, to be honest with you. I would actually have been curious who FIU would have scheduled if it wasn't Penn State. But yeah, I mean, we're curious. We're looking forward to it. Penn State, really good team. So we'll see what happens.
They probably would have hosted, or they probably would have scheduled with a power conference. Remember, just because they usually do that once a year, and you get a bag out of it.
I'm going to ask because remember, Penn State had this done with Virginia Tech for a while now. It wasn't just like. So FIU must have been looking for other teams to discuss, right? So I want to ask, and I want to figure that out.
So with that said, you mentioned the running back room at Penn State, how it might be the most complete running back room in the country. How do you envision, genuinely, how do you think FIU will fare against that room? Do you think, like, based on what you've seen, that they have a chance to limit them as much as, say, Nevada did? Or do you think it's going to be like 80% run by Penn State's offense in this game, and that's just going to be that?
Well, credit to Nevada. They stopped the run game pretty well against Penn State. So maybe it'll be a little bit worse, just given, it's the second game. The rust is off for both teams. So Allen and Singleton are definitely going to go out there and do their thing, right? So I'm curious. I'm curious to see what could happen. With the run game, I think FIU will do their best to stop it. I think it'll be stopped at points. But I'd rather and this is the other thing worth noting. They're saying there could be potential rain in this game. So
there could be.
So I expect to see a lot more of the ground game, right? So that means you're going to have to win on the trenches. And FIU really, really added a lot of talent on the trenches to make sure that they win. Yeah. So will it happen against Penn State? Maybe not. Will it happen against FAU? I think now we're talking.
Not to mention FIU could have the advantage of already playing in a rainstorm. So rain in Happy Valley, or what could be Gloomy Valley, with that weather rolling, and that's not going to be a too big a factor for them, I would think. Now, on the topic of Penn State's defense, what part of FIU do you think could have the advantage here between the passing and running game? It's a complete defense. Both sides, the trenches and the secondary for Penn State are probably going to be ready for whatever FIU throws at them. But which side do you sort of lean in having better success against them?
Maybe the passing game. I haven't heard too much about what Penn State's cornerbacks are. All the hype around them is their linebackers and defensive ends, which may as well be. So, yeah, I'll go that. I say they're going to have to make some big plays. It's going to be a lot of small yardage gains, but it's gains regardless, right? It's a positive yardage gain, which you'll take. So keep Penn State's offenses off the field as much as you can. FIU needs to have long drives, and I think there's a good chance that they could do that, at least throughout the first quarter of action until Penn State makes whatever adjustments they need to make.
I'm glad you mentioned the big plays, because I know James Franklin talked about that, how they weren't able to create big plays against Nevada's defense. Now, I really want to know how much film FIU saw of how they're able to do that. And do you think that FIU's secondary is well built enough and well coached enough to not allow the same thing, to not allow the big 50-yard play that they allowed against Bethune-Cookman, ironically?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big thing, limiting those explosive plays. And not just that, limiting opportunities for Penn State's offense to get on the field. We saw Nevada do this too. Nevada really struggled with that. They gave Penn State quite a bit of opportunities to score. The 88-yard kick return. You also had the interception to the defensive lineman, which put him in the red zone. So it's a lot of those plays that you need to limit and you can't have happen, because FIU on special teams, as Willie noted in his press conference on Tuesday, did not look good. So the hope is, all right, let's see how much different it'll look, right? So curious to see what happens there. Offensively, what FIU needs to do, FIU needs to pound the ball, needs to pound it. But because at the end of the day, you need to open the passing game at some point, right? So I think they're going to have to pound the ball to open the passing game, or vice versa, pass it to open the run game. So they need to find some sort of balance there. They did that pretty well against Bethune, in my opinion. But again, take it with a grain of salt. It's Bethune. Big test is FAU. So we'll see what happens there with the ground, with that balance, finding a balance on offense.
Have you ever been in front of 100,000 fans at an event before?
Have you?
Can't say that I have. Maybe largest crowd I've been, maybe at a Dolphins game when it was like completely sold out, but that's like 65K or something like that. So with that said, I'm really curious as to how the players, especially those who have never been even close to a situation like this, how they'll handle this. But Kevin, it's now time to ask you what the score prediction will be. And again, I think I already know what this is going to be, but the line opened up 42 and a hook. I think it's now 41 and a hook. We didn't even know FAU's line, technically still. But I'll leave it to you, Kevin. Does FIU are you confident with FIU plus 41 and a hook here?
Well, does FAU really not have the line yet?
I didn't see it on Action.
No, not up there yet. Yeah. I will go with FIU losing to the Penn State Nittany Lions by final score 55-14. Same one I said on the Positive Podcast. Same one I said on many other Penn State podcasts. Unfortunately, just don't see a world where FIU pulls off this upset. I think they'll keep it close to the first quarter or two, maybe going into the half. Drew Allard will have to go out there in the third quarter and really get it going for them, and that's when you'll see the backups enter towards the end of the third, going into the fourth. So FIU loses to the Penn State Nittany Lions, and the undefeated season comes to a close. it'll be a final score 55-14.
What would be the most borderline illegal thing you would consider doing if FIU were to pull this off?
I don't know, honestly. Nothing I want to see out here, to be honest with you.
Go streaking around Pitbull Stadium? Okay, fine. All right. Well, fine. Keep your secrets. But
hey, man, what would you do if they won? Because you're being neutral, but you're an FIU fan.
All right. Let's see what Kevin Fielder has to say about the Florida Atlantic Owls as they look to feast on an HBCU school in FCS against Florida A&M. Take it away, Kevin. And welcome back to the Shula Bowl podcast as we are joined by Kevin Fielder, who is going to talk about FAU's Week 1 loss to Maryland by a score of 39-7. Now, Kevin, I feel like at some points it could have been a whole lot worse, but does 39-7 really justify what you saw in the field in that game?
No, because it feels again like it should have been worse. That was to some degree, right? Like I think I had mentioned this probably in a group chat or something. That was a game where FAU just got beaten, battered, bruised. And it was like just one of those games where truthfully nothing goes right for FAU and everything goes right for Maryland. Maryland just had every answer and FAU had none. And it truly felt like that when you watch the game. And so maybe that scoreline feels right in the sense that it was a blowout, but it feels like it should have been worse.
Definitely. Now, granted, it's a Big Ten caliber team in Maryland, even if they're on, say, the bottom end of the conference. But still, let's talk about Veldkamp. We got to start off with him. If you ignore the 4 interceptions, he had a pretty solid day slinging the ball, 30 for 49, 228 yards. But Maryland's defense was kind of all over Veldkamp in this game. What did he do right, and what did he do wrong?
Right, truthfully, again, like there's not much. I think that the biggest issue with Veldkamp's performance, and it was sort of the issue with the entire offense, is no one was getting open. When they needed guys to get open, guys weren't getting open. And B, Veldkamp just really wasn't seeing the field very well. And the issue is when you play this air raid kind of offense, which is what FAU is trying to run this year, if you don't have everyone on the same page in terms of quarterback, wide receivers, guys are getting open, quarterbacks finding them, you're going to struggle. It's going to be a long day for your offense. And as a result, this was a long day for your offense. And Veldkamp, I think, had moments where he looked encouraging. He had moments where he looked like the guy who FAU brought in to be the QB1. But in overall, like in generality, when I graded his performance and just sort of tried to put a letter grade to it, I thought it was a D. Like I thought it was just not good enough. And again, like a lot of this was that he wasn't seeing the field. He was taking bad sacks. He was throwing bad plays. And like he had 4 interceptions. It felt like it could have been 6 himself. And like it was just kind of one of those days at the office. And his problems were amplified by almost everything else. The lack of a run game, the lack of guys getting open. Like, I'm not going to put this performance on any one particular person. I think Zach Kitley sort of said it perfectly, right? Like, when you lose a game like this, no one person gets the blame. You lost this game because everyone didn't show up the way that they should have.
Yeah, definitely. So, hang on. What do you attribute this more to? Could it be jitters and nerves for Veldkamp in his first time with FAU? Is it more of just this, like you mentioned, the system they ran just didn't pan out against Maryland, or did Maryland do something specific in that game that really caused Veldkamp to freak out?
I think a lot of it was that FAU didn't show up. I think, look, credit to Maryland. They played a great performance. Maryland walked out of there as the rightful winners. But I also felt like FAU didn't do themselves any favors. It was aggressiveness on 4th down from Zach Kitley where, looking back at it, maybe you shouldn't have gotten as aggressive when you did. Maybe you should have tried to pin them back and trust your defense to make a play. It was Veldkamp not being able to see the field consistently. It was the lack of a consistent running game. It's all these issues that sort of happened. And that's why, like, when I look at a reason why this game happened the way it did, I can't blame it on one person. Even if I wanted to try and pin blame on only Coach Kitley and the way that he coached, or only Caden Veldkamp, I can't, because so many things have to go wrong for you to lose the way you did. It's like the very no good, bad, horrible day in the office. Like it's like nothing went right, and it starts at the top and it goes to the bottom.
It definitely did. Now, offensively, when they weren't when they weren't throwing, they were running, and they definitely didn't get anything going there as well. 77 yards on the day for 32 carries, no scores that way. What did you see from there? Jamari Sands had like the best day out of all of them, but even the best runner for FAU still was relatively disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, Jamari Sands only runs the ball 9 times for 44 yards. Xavier Terrell also runs the ball for 9 times, gets about 28 yards. The truth is, right, like they had some explosive plays on the ground game. Like I thought Jamari Sands looked pretty good as the starting running back, but I think the biggest issue was just the talent disparity between FAU's offensive line and Maryland's defensive line made it incredibly difficult to run the ball. And as a result, when you're living in second down and long and third down and long, it's really difficult for your offense to get going. The truth is most offenses are not built for 3rd and 9. And so like FAU tried to do other things to get the run game going. They tried to create some sort of explosives through the screen game and through, the RPO game. None of it really was able to be a consistent threat. And like, I think looking back at it, in a perfect world, you would have liked to have a little bit more of a consistent run game early, because that's would have been the biggest difference. Is if you had a consistent run game, I think less pressure is on Cade Veldkamp, and you don't have to throw the ball 62 times in the game. FAU wants to throw the ball. They probably don't want to throw the ball 62 times, and they kind of just had to because they were living in 3rd and long for a lot of the game.
Well, then let me ask you this then regarding the offense. What were any positive takeaways you can really see from that performance? If it was a specific player that did a little bit better than expected, if it was maybe the offensive line, 3 sacks allowed by Maryland's defense and 8 tackles for a loss. Just what is there a single shine of light from FAU's offense?
I thought they found ways to create explosives early on. I thought Asad Wasim had a really impressive slot fade that went for a touchdown. It was one of their only good plays of the day, and it was their only touchdown of the day. And so like there were certainly positive moments for the receivers that sort of gave you the impression that things can sort of get back to what you expect them to be. But I don't really have like a long list of positives here from the offense. I feel a little bit better about the defense's performance, but the offense, I don't really sit here being like, this was a great performance for the offense.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the defense. Limiting, as a group of 5 opponent, limiting a power conference offense to under 40 points is not too shabby, though they certainly got pretty close. But talk a bit about what you saw from FAU's defense. In the second half, they were definitely clicking, but how much of that do you attribute to Maryland sending in the backups as much as they did?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of just want to focus on the first half for the FAU defense, because I think the second half is just kind of this thing of like, you were down by a lot, everyone's dejected. There's not much going for you in that sense. The first half, I looked down the list of guys. I thought there were plenty of good enough performances. I thought the secondary really early on sort of held their own. And I thought Therese Reed, the Division II transfer, who's I believe a 6-year senior, looked really good in his role. He had a lot of impressive plays and run support, and he was good in the passing game. Early on, it looked like the secondary came to play, and they did. I think that court sort of tailored off as the offense struggled and the defense had to play a little bit more. But early on, you saw flashes there. The front 7, I think the run defense held their own for most of the game. And I think that, like, for the most part, if you're looking for any real positive to take from this game, it's the fact that your run defense held its own against a Big Ten opponent. And whether you think this is a good Big Ten opponent or not, it's still a Big Ten opponent. There's still Big Ten talent on that team. And FAU's run defense held their own. I thought the front 7, led by CJ DeGette and Najon Barber, was really solid. And I think that they did a lot on the front end of that front 7 to encourage you. You just need a more complete performance. And the good news is it's only week 1. Truthfully, it could really probably only go up from here. What
percentage? Let's do something interesting here. What percentage of FAU shortcomings in this game do you attribute to rust and nerves for it being a week 1 game compared to just being outplayed by Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it was that they just got outplayed by Maryland.
Okay.
So I would say probably like 70-30, 75-25, something around there. Like, I think some of it was just miscommunication by the offense. General week 1 rust. You kind of want to shake that off maybe a little bit earlier than FAU did. But I think a lot of it was just Maryland is a more talented team, and the more talented team won on Saturday. Like, I think that we can try and analyze this and I think fans will, because they want to try and find the reasons why these things happen. I think the truth is the better team won. The better coached, the better disciplined, the more talented team won on Saturday. And I think that Maryland, to their credit, Malik Washington, the starting quarterback, played an awesome game under center. And I think that he was doing a lot of things that would frustrate most teams in the Big Ten, let alone FAU.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that, sure, there are definitely some cases where FAU looked a little bit rusty, it being week 1 and all, but I think they also just got outplayed. And, like, just truth be told, tip your cap to Maryland. They played a better game. They wanted to win that game a little bit more.
Well, based on what we've seen, not just from Maryland, but the rest of college football in week 1, is Maryland still the toughest opponent that is on FAU's schedule? I know some teams like South Florida and Tulane both looked really, really good in week 1. So is Maryland still the top dog in that schedule, or are there even more teams to worry about?
From a talent perspective, I would say Maryland's more talented than those teams, but there are sort of 2 games now that I look at and go, ooh, maybe I don't feel as good about those games as I did in any of the preview episodes we did. First one you mentioned, South Florida. They beat the brakes off of a nationally ranked Boise State team, and they looked really good across the board. They played as close to a perfect game as you can in week 1. And then the other one, and I expected this to be a tough game. Like, let's be clear. I knew this would be a tough game. Navy. Yeah. That Navy team's good. That Navy team is disciplined. Yes. That Navy team knows what they're doing. And I went back and I watched a little bit more of that performance. I know they played, I believe, an FCS team or just a bad team in general, but they won that game the way Navy wins games, controlling the pace, controlling it on the ground, and playing the way they did. They did it perfectly. And the way that FAU looked, it feels a little bit different. The good news, both those games are played late October. You've got plenty of time to figure it out.
Certainly do. So I think we'll leave it there. As far as the Maryland game, just do you have any final thoughts on how it all went? Maybe some key players that you still think can blossom for this FAU squad, and the message from Kitley on the game itself as well.
Yeah, I mean, the message from Kitley, first of all, is one I agree with. That can't be the standard, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there are expectations, there's hype in place. Everything needs to be better. Like, I'm glad he came out there and didn't go, well, guys, we played Maryland and we weren't projected to win. Because when you have standards, right, like, you need to live up to those standards, whether it's Maryland, whether it's Florida A&M, who's next? Like, you have to live up to those standards. Yeah. In terms of players who I think will still be good, I still think Caden Vailcamp is good. I know it didn't look good in week 1, but he's still a talented quarterback. There's still plenty to like. I think he just needs a get-right game, and I think this next game against FAMU is the perfect get-right game. I was really encouraged by the way Hassad Wasim played. I thought he did everything you wanted him to. And I think that he was the perfect deep threat dynamic play at receiver. The Colorado transfer had the only touchdown on offense, and he had plenty of explosive plays. One other guy who I thought impressed, there are actually 2. The 2 tight ends in Martavis Collins and Michael Kirch. Kirch being a D2 transfer, Collins a transfer from UTEP. They both looked solid. And FAU doesn't use a lot of tight ends, but I left encouraged by the way those 2 played, and I think that there's certainly a role for both of them in this offense. Defensively, I think there was plenty to like defensively. Plenty of guys to like defensively. I just kind of want to see it happen a little bit more. So I don't know if I need to really name names on that side. Just keep playing the way you did against Maryland, and you should feel good about performances later on in the year.
There you go. All right, then. So let's briefly talk about FAMU. Again, it's an FCS school in the SWAC. Now, they are coming into this game pretty angry, coming off that heartbreaker loss to Howard in the Orange Blossom Classic at Hard Rock Stadium. Just talk about what you've seen from the Rattlers. What scares you the most? Is there even a realistic chance that they could pull off a shocker in Boca?
I'll be honest, I would be shocked if they pull it off a shocker in Boca, because this FAMU team is one that barely beat a Howard team that they should be better at, or better than most weeks. It was a 10-9 game. They won, I believe, on a walk-off field goal.
Yeah,
and that
Howard
offense,
won. Yeah.
And that offense didn't look very good for Florida A&M. Like, I think that defense looked really good. Again, we talked about the talent difference between FAU and Maryland. The talent difference between FAU and FAMU will feel very similar. I think this is a game that FAU can win pretty easily because of some of the issues for FAMU's offense. Just not a lot went right for them on offense. And it started with the quarterback position, where their quarterback, RJ Johnson, struggled and just couldn't get a lot going in terms of throwing the ball. They couldn't run the ball consistently. And so I think you'll see another good performance for the defense. Then from FAU's offense, I think they should be more talented. I think they should find enough ways to win the game on offense. And I would hope that they can produce some more fireworks than they did against Maryland.
Who do you think, coming off a loss like that to Maryland, aside from Veldkamp, what player would you say needs to prove the most that they are legitimate and right for the squad in this, like you said, get back game against FAMU?
Wide receiver Easton Messer has almost guaranteed that this team is going to be better offensively than they were against Maryland. Show me, don't tell me, is all I can say about like any of those comments about like, we'll be better. Show me, don't tell me. I don't want to hear that you'll be better. I want to see that you'll be better. And Messer had a ton of catches. He had about 80. He led the team receiving. It was not a lot of productive plays. He got about 15 receptions. I don't think that means that he was good. I think that just means that he was the only one getting open. I want to see a little bit more explosiveness out of him. I want to see a little bit more production from whoever the wide receiver is alongside Wasim on the outside. They did a little bit of Jabari Smith. They did a little bit of Jayshawn Platt. They did a little bit of Dominique Henry. They didn't really have that true answer for that third receiver, and I kind of want to see who steps up there. The running game just needs to be better overall. Like, I don't know if there's one person who needs to be better in that room. I think in general, they just need to be better in that room. And then defensively, I just kind of want to see the secondary hold their own for a little bit longer. I don't want this to be a thing where you look good for 2-3 drives and then you start to tail off. I'd like to see this secondary just play a complete game. And I get that a lot of that might have been that the defense or that the offense struggled, but I want to see the defense show up and play 4 quarters of dang near perfect football.
Here's a take, and I'd like to know if you agree with it, but it feels like both FIU and FAU are preparing themselves with these 2 early tests in preparation for the Shula Bowl, which will be the most even matchup between both these schools to start this season, with both teams taking on an FCS school and a power conference school. Granted, FIU took on the FCS school first. Now they take on Penn State, and it's vice versa for the Owls. But it feels like those two games were minor tests to see how they can fare against a team that is below their caliber and a team that is above their caliber. And now the upcoming Shula Bowl is going to be where worlds collide and will be the biggest test to see where both squads are at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of get the best of both worlds by playing a really good team and a team in a bye game that you should be beating comfortably. You get to see what the perfect ideal looks like for this offense, right? Or for both teams, what the perfect ideal looks like on both sides of football. Because like FIU didn't really have a lot of issues with Bethune-Cookman. And they probably shouldn't have had a lot of issues with Bethune-Cookman. Now you get to likely see what the bad looks like and how you can adjust from there. Like, I would be shocked, like, just truth be told, if FIU had a fighter's chance against Penn State. That's probably the best, most talented team in the country in Penn State. But you get to see maybe some players that look good, right? Some things that look good, some things that look encouraging, and you can take that onto film and you can have that film. I think you get the best of both worlds. And I do agree, right, that like this is probably going to be one of the most evenly matched Shula Bowls that we've had in a while. I think this FIU team is better than they've been in the past. And I think this FAU team is beginning to build towards something, but we just don't know where they're at yet. This is going to be the most ideal Shula Bowl that we've had in years, because I don't know if there's a clear favorite like it felt like we've had for probably the last 10 years.
Alrighty then, I'll turn this to you now, Kevin, for your prediction for this upcoming game against Florida A&M. To my knowledge, I don't know what the odds are for this game, but I'm assuming the Owls are going to be heavily favored, of course. So I know that you know they're going to win, but let's throw around, say the odds are 35, 36 and a hook. Is that reasonable? Just what's your score prediction for this game?
I think FAU would cover a 36.5 point spread against FAMU. I think this is an FAU team who knows they need to prove something. I think this is an FAU team that knows they need to look better than they did on Saturday in Maryland against a decent Maryland team. And I think that they know that this is going to have to be a game where they can't struggle, because there's going to be a lot of the fan base that just doesn't let a bad game go unnoticed. So I think that this is going to be a team that shows up motivated. And I think this is going to be a team that gets to play their best game against a FAMU team that just didn't look their best against Howard in week 1. I think FAU wins this game really comfortably. Give me 48-7. FAU wins by 41 points, and it never really looks close. Like, I wouldn't be shocked me if by the end of the first quarter it's like a 21-point deficit, and we're talking about at what point do the backups get to come in.
So how soon will it be after the clock hits 0 in the fourth quarter that it turns into FIU hate week for over there in Boca?
The minute the game ends, it's FAU. It's FIU hate week. I don't think we need to wait a second. I don't think there's a time. I think the minute that game ends, once those clocks hit triple zeros, it's FIU hate week in Boca.
Do you think we should copy what the two members of the game do, where they cross out O and M? Should we do the same with A and I?
I don't think we can do that. I don't think FAU and FIU are at that point yet. Hopefully there's a point where like both these teams are ranked and we're like fighting for something big. Then I think we could truly get into like the crossing out letters part of hate week.
Yeah, definitely. So, alrighty, everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Shula Bowl podcast. And well, like the name of our pod suggests, the big game's coming up real soon, but we have a couple of different tests for both FIU and FAU to get to then. So thank you for watching episode 124, and we look to see you next week for what should be a pretty big show.